happening in my mind. I can't control it.
What did you see?
There's a crusade coming.
Do you often dream things that happen just as you dreamed them?
Yes.
The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box, and you die.
What's in the box?
Pain.
That was Timothée Chalamet from the new sci-fi epic Dune, which is enjoying a decent run in movie theaters right now and on HBO Max. Welcome back to Two Tickets, Please. I'm your host, Josiah Wampfler, and we finally have some bona fide epic blockbusters to review again. I will be discussing Dune later on in the show, which is finally being released after a long delay due to the pandemic. Director Denis Villeneuve is at the helm this time and has taken on the challenge of adapting the Frank Herbert novel that many considered unfilmable for years. Did he succeed? Stick around to find out. And in considerably more serious news, we'll discuss the tragic death of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins, who was shot and killed on the set of Alec Baldwin's new film Rust, following an accidental discharge of a gun Baldwin was wielding for a scene. What happened to lead to the tragedy, and what does it have to do with an ongoing labor fight going on within the film industry? But first, let's discuss Daniel Craig's last go-around as James Bond in the long-awaited fifth installment of his career, No Time to Die.
Name? Bond. James Bond.
So you're not dead?
Hello, Q. I've missed you.
James?
You don't know what this is?
You ever flown one of these?
Nope.
When you're ready.
You're late.
Only in theaters.
After 6 long years with much speculation over whether Daniel Craig would ever return to the part, and an extra year added on because of the pandemic, No Time to Die, the final installment of Craig's run as James Bond, is finally in theaters. A follow-up to one of Craig's least popular Bond films, Spectre, this film sees Cary Joji Fukunaga, most famous for Season 1 of True Detective, step into the director's chair as the first American and second director of color to ever helm a Bond film. And since the last film left somewhat of a bad taste in many viewers' mouths, Fukunaga's task was not easy. Bring Bond back to the cinema after a significant time away, remind audiences why this series is so beloved, and give Daniel Craig a send-off worthy of his impressive stint as the secret agent. Not to spoil my review too quickly here, but Fukunaga succeeds on all fronts. The film brings back many characters from the previous films, such as Ralph Fiennes' M, Naomi Harris's Moneypenny, Ben Wishaw's Q, and even Christoph Waltz's Blofeld. And it continues the romance between Bond and Madeleine, played by Léa Seydoux, which was sparked in Spectre. But No Time to Die also introduces audiences to 3 new characters that are sure to be instant favorites. Cuban intelligence officer Paloma, played by Ana de Armas, 00 agent Nomi, played by Lashana Lynch, and the big bad of No Time to Die, Lucifer Safin, played by Rami Malek. All 3 are a huge part of what makes this Bond film such a winner. The film picks up where Spectre left off. Bond and Madeleine have rode off into the sunset together, ready to begin a life after MI6. Blofeld has been captured and his organization Spectre crippled. And MI6 have had to move on James Bondless and have promoted Nomi to 007 status. But as you may have guessed, Bond doesn't seem destined for a quiet family life, and Madeleine has her own secrets that catch up to them and ruin their planned getaway. Following an attack by Spectre agents, Bond feels betrayed by Madeleine and leaves her on a train, retreating to a life of solitude in the Caribbean. This solitude, of course, does not last. 5 years later, Bond is approached by CIA agent Felix Leiter, who tells him that a bioweapon from an MI6 laboratory has been stolen. This bioweapon, Bond later learns, is a virus-like nanoweapon that can target specific individuals' DNA, killing them instantly but leaving others unharmed. But in the wrong hands, it could be used to infect large swaths of the global population. The rest of the film follows Bond's quest to find out who has taken it and destroy it. While I have enjoyed the majority of Craig's outings as Bond, I think it is a fair criticism that the franchise has gotten away from some of the classic things that have made the series so beloved. Some of the things that has dropped over time, like the hyper-sexualization of the Bond girls, are definitely positive. But you could criticize some of the Craig Bond films for taking themselves a bit too seriously and excising some of the fun and humor the series had become known for. While No Time to Die is through and through a continuation of Craig's version of James Bond, I thought it managed to bring back some of that fun and humor within the context of this more serious Bond. Not only are the Bond one-liners back, but many of the characters lend their humor to the film, such as Ana de Armas's Paloma, who is an absolute hoot. Plus, pretty much every action sequence in the film brings something unique and fun, if not totally humorous. Having recently rewatched GoldenEye, I was hoping for the return of fun action sequences like James Bond chasing down the bad guys through the streets in a tank, and No Time to Die definitely brings some of that energy. But like I said, this still fits well within Craig's oeuvre as the more serious iteration of the character, and within that context, this may be the best performance he's ever had as Bond. While I still probably prefer Casino Royale or Skyfall over No Time to Die, Fukunaga's Bond film digs deeper into the character than ever before. This is a film that gets underneath the hard exterior of James Bond and reveals a more tender and earnest side of the character. It shows a Bond that has real hopes and desires and brings genuine emotion to the series. And it also allows Daniel Craig and the other cast members to deliver powerful and more complex performances. The Craig Bond films have also played around with the idea of critiquing MI6 and the intelligence state for several films, Skyfall probably being the best example so far. But No Time to Die feels like it delivers on that idea the best. The bioweapon that Rami Malek's Safin gets his hands on was developed by MI6, and even though its theft threatens the entire planet, the British and American intelligence agencies are not communicating and not working together. M claims he authorized the bioweapon as a means of saving the lives of his own agents, but apparently did not comprehend the ramifications if the weapon fell into the wrong hands. No Time to Die shows, obviously in its own hyper-fictionalized way, the danger of allowing these clandestine intelligence agencies to run unchecked and ungoverned. While in reality we thankfully haven't had a massive bioweapon released into the world because of MI6 or the CIA, these agencies have been responsible for backing coups around the world and engaging in many clandestine operations that have had horrible unintended consequences because decision makers didn't consider what might happen if everything didn't go according to plan or just didn't care about the consequences. No Time to Die delivers the best critique of these agencies to date in the series, while obviously being a bit limited due to Bond being a member of secret intelligence. My biggest complaint about No Time to Die, though, is that, well, Rami Malek's performance as Safin is excellent. The character himself was a bit confusing. By the end of the film, his motivations for his specific evil villain plan are still a bit hazy and unconvincing. But that's about the only thing that doesn't work about the ending, as it delivers an incredibly well-done and poignant send-off for Craig as Bond. Cary Fukunaga's No Time to Die brings fun and humor back into the series in a major way, introduces new, indelible characters that I hope will be in future iterations, packs a genuine emotional punch, and features an absolutely gorgeous Hans Zimmer score, as well as one of the best Bond themes from Billie Eilish. After 6 years, it is good to have Bond back in our lives, and I can't wait to see where the series goes with whoever will fill Craig's shoes. I'm giving No Time to Die 4 out of 5 stars. It is out in theaters now, and I would highly encourage making time for it.
We begin with that tragic breaking news. Tragedy on the film set of Alec Baldwin's movie in New Mexico. The director of photography was killed. Police say this all happened when a prop was discharged by Baldwin. The director of the film, titled Rust, also was injured. Eyewitness News reporter
On October 21st, 2021, on the set of the Western film Rust in Santa Fe, New Mexico, As actor Alec Baldwin was practicing for a scene, he accidentally fired the gun he was holding. He had been told that the gun was not loaded, that it was cold, but that was false. The live ammunition loaded in the gun struck cinematographer Halyna Hutchins and director Joel Souza. Hutchins was tended to by medics on the set and flown to University of New Mexico Hospital, where she passed away. Souza is recovering from his injury. Hutchins' death comes amidst a labor dispute between the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, or IATSE, and the movie studios. Hutchins was a proud IATSE member. Her death also came the day 6 IATSE members walked off the set in protest of poor working conditions, including concern over gun safety. This incident is currently under investigation, so there are many questions we can't fully answer, but my intent here is to provide you with relevant information to navigate the story as more information comes out. First of all, let's begin with who Halyna Hutchins was. She was a Ukrainian cinematographer and journalist, credited with work on over 30 films, short films, music videos, and television productions. Hutchins was born in the village of Horodets and grew up in the city of Murmansk, where her father served in the Soviet Navy. She graduated from Kiev National University with a degree in international journalism, going on to work as an investigative journalist in Eastern Europe for a time before moving to Los Angeles to study film. Hutchins attended a 2-year AFI conservatory starting in 2013 and began working her way up through the camera department from there. She landed her first feature film director of photography credit for the 2017 film Snowbound, working consistently on several short films and music videos during that time as well. In 2019, she was named one of the, quote, 10 up-and-coming directors of photography who are making their mark by American Cinematographer. Rust was set to be her biggest film to date. She was 42 years old and is survived by her husband and son. So what does the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees and what does their dispute with the studios have to do with this? IATSE is one of the longest-running labor organizations in the world, and it represents over 150,000 behind-the-scenes workers in all facets of the performing arts, working in television production, concerts, trade shows, Broadway, film, and more. The workers represented range from ushers to animators to camera crew to set builders. Hutchins was an IATSE member. The union was set to go on strike on Monday, October 18th, demanding better working conditions for their members after a summer of failed talks with the studios. Here's what IATSE was seeking in a new deal. Maximum 12-hour shifts, minimum 12-hour turnaround time between shifts, higher wages for the lowest paid crafts, and an end to workers on streaming service projects getting paid less than equivalent projects for other studios. The Friday before the strike, though, IATSE leadership reached a deal with the studios to prevent the work stoppage. Not all of the details have been released, but many rank-and-file union members were not happy with the outcome. The deal would provide an increase of the minimum wage on set from $16 an hour to $26 an hour by 2024. But the union did not get the shift cap or turnaround time minimum. The studios would only agree to 10-hour turnaround times, which is already in many workers' contracts. Union members will have a chance to voice their support or opposition to the deal within the coming weeks. If the deal is voted down by members, we still may see a strike. Now, back to the shooting on the set of Rust. Something else occurred on the morning of October 21st, 2021. 6 members of the crew walked off the set after expressing concerns to the production company about payment, housing, and gun safety. The 6 that walked off were IATSE Local 44 members. That same morning, the production company hired non-union employees to take their place and continued production. Workers have said that the production company had promised to pay for crew members' hotels in Santa Fe, but when production began, they were informed they would have to make the 50-mile drive back to Albuquerque every day after 12-hour-plus shifts. There were also issues with workers not being paid on time, and after 3 accidental gun misfires occurred on the set in the week leading up to the incident, 2 by Alec Baldwin's stunt double on the Saturday prior, the 6 IATSE members decided they had had enough. Merely 6 hours after they left, production resumed with their non-union replacements. Several news outlets also reported that guns on set were used for live ammunition target practice several times outside of work hours, including the morning of the incident. It is unclear whether the IATSE members that walked off that morning knew about this. The investigation into this tragedy is ongoing, and more information will be coming. But it stands quite clearly as an example of the poor working conditions IATSE has been fighting to improve. It is unclear whether the hiring of non-union workers the day of the shooting directly contributed to what happened, but according to a report by the RAP, an industry insider told them a walkout like this from union workers would normally trigger a shutdown of the entire production for at least a day. That the production company would move forward with shooting the same day, especially shooting scenes with weapons involved, and after workers had specifically voiced concerns over gun safety, is quite concerning. It is a pretty clear example of how behind-the-scenes workers in the entertainment industry are not given the respect they deserve. What happened to Halyna Hutchins was a tragedy. There has been and will be much finger-pointing over who is to blame. And there may be specific individuals who will face criminal charges for their role in what happened. But I think there are two important takeaways from this incident. First and foremost, a young woman lost her life. Unfortunately, a good deal of the news coverage has been centering Alec Baldwin in this story, but it is Halyna Hutchins that should be at the center. This young woman was cut down just as she was rising to prominence in her field, a field that has historically been awful in regards to hiring female talent. And she leaves behind a husband and a young child who have had their lives irrevocably changed in the blink of an eye. Her life should be celebrated and mourned, most importantly. And secondly, while certain individuals likely have some culpability for this incident, what is quite clear is that this is beyond just a couple of bad apples on set. What happened on the set of Rust could happen on almost any production that treats their workers poorly and cuts corners at the expense of their crew's safety. The fight IATSE is engaged in to bring better pay and better conditions for their workers is incredibly important, not only for the overall well-being of the behind-the-scenes workers in the entertainment industry, but it may help prevent a tragedy like this from ever happening again.
My planet Arrakis is so beautiful when the sun is low. Rolling over the sands, you can see spice in the air. The outsiders ravage our lands in front of our eyes. Their cruelty to my people is all I've known. What's to become of our world?
A boy.
Hey, Duncan, can I trust you with something?
Yes, always. You know that.
I've been having dreams about a girl on Arrakis. I don't know what it means.
Dreams make good stories. But everything important happens when we're awake. Hey, you. Put on some muscle?
I did?
No.
If you're a fan of sci-fi films or the work of director Denis Villeneuve, you've been anticipating the release of Dune, as I have. Based on the enormously influential 1965 novel by Frank Herbert, only one film adaptation had ever been brought to the big screen before this year, the 1984 version directed by David Lynch, which famously flopped and was disowned by the director himself. So to say bringing a faithful and commercially and critically successful version of this story to the big screen was quite a task for Villeneuve is an understatement. Now let's get the plot description out of the way because, as with a lot of sci-fi, it can get a little bit in the weeds, so I'll try to set the stage as clearly and succinctly as possible. The film is set nearly 10,000 years in the future. Humanity lives in a galactic empire with a system of alliances between different noble houses. Warriors have shields that make guns useless and melee weapons important once again, and the galactic economy revolves around the planet Arrakis. Arrakis is a desert planet populated by giant murderous sandworms and an indigenous people known as the Fremen. It also has an incredibly important resource known as spice, a drug that is so unspeakably dank, it lets you fold space and time with your mind. Spice is a necessity for intergalactic travel. The Galactic Empire has been exploiting the Fremen's homeworld for many years to mine spice. Dune centers on Paul Atreides, son of Duke Leto Atreides, whose house has just been tasked with overseeing mining operations on Arrakis, following the removal of their rivals, House Harkonnen, from the project by the Emperor. Paul's mother is a member of the Bene Gesserit, who are basically an all-female space Illuminati with witch powers. She believes Paul may be the Messiah her order has been awaiting for centuries. House Atreides taking over operations on Arrakis and rumors of Paul's potential power make House Atreides a target for the other houses. While this may seem a bit confusing, Villeneuve does an excellent job in making the plotting of Dune understandable even to those who have not read the novel. But it is important to note that the original 400-page novel is quite a thick read, so this film is only part 1 of the Dune story. Part 2 has been greenlit and can be expected in 2023. Denis Villeneuve has been one of my favorite directors for several years, ever since I saw Arrival and Blade Runner 2049. There are 2 crucial skills displayed in those films that he employs beautifully in Dune: tension and atmosphere. Dune is one of the most unique and awe-inspiring visual experiences I've ever had. Villeneuve brings to life a brutalist world filled with dark and foreboding images, and while it is hard to create anything in sci-fi cinema now without having the mind draw similarities to Star Wars or Star Trek or another major work in the genre, I can honestly say there are design concepts in this film that feel wholly unique. Some of the dark, intense atmosphere of the film comes from its visual design, but it also comes from Villeneuve's writing. From the outset of the film, you can feel the incredible and terrifying weight that has been placed on the shoulders of House Atreides and specifically Paul. The tension is omnipresent and creeping throughout. It carries the film through some of its slower parts and makes its action set pieces truly edge-of-your-seat affairs. The cast that Villeneuve has assembled also carries the film quite handily. There is an extremely fun Jason Momoa as warrior Duncan Idaho, a brief but powerful Charlotte Rampling performance as Reverend Mother Mohim, another member of the Bene Gesserits, and a masterfully strange and creepy portrayal of Baron Harkonnen, head of House Harkonnen, by Stellan Skarsgård. Dave Bautista and Josh Brolin also show up briefly as commanders for the Harkonnen and Atreides houses respectively, but we will probably see more of them in the sequel. The 4 actors most at the center of Dune, though, are Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica Atreides, Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto Atreides, Zendaya as Chani, and of course, Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides. The relationship between Paul and his parents is central to this story, especially because Villeneuve has envisioned this film as a sort of coming-of-age film for Paul. The chemistry between Ferguson, Isaac, and Chalamet is perfect, and what each one is bringing individually really helps to endear the audience to their characters. Zendaya, while an important part of the film, does not get a ton to do in this first part. She will be a main character in the sequel, but she is largely relegated to wordlessly appearing in numerous visions Paul has throughout the film. That being said, Zendaya may be the perfect actress to excel at such a task. Her screen presence is simply incredible. Obviously, breaking up a completely contained story into multiple films comes with drawbacks. We've seen the problems with this practice in film series like Harry Potter and The Hobbit. And Dune surely does not escape completely unscathed from this critique. When the end credits rolled, it definitely felt a bit weird. I'm not sure that Villeneuve chose the perfect place to cut off the story, and there are certain aspects of the world of Dune I still have some major questions about. The structure forced on this first part also causes the last 45 minutes of the film to feel a bit like a long coda to a climax. But I can't deny how effective Villeneuve was in building a world that I didn't want to leave, writing characters I wanted to stay longer with, and creating a film north of 2.5 hours that definitely didn't feel that long. I think great sci-fi is about creating an engrossing atmosphere or mood and using it to grapple with big ideas and themes. It's somewhat difficult to analyze the themes of a story that is incomplete, But Dune is most explicitly grappling with the idea of colonization and exploitation of indigenous populations. The Fremen are the indigenous people of Arrakis, and for years suffered at the hands of House Harkonnen. When Duke Leto Atreides arrives on the planet, he says his goal is not to oppress the Fremen, but to build an alliance with them. What I find interesting about Dune's examination of colonialism here is that while we have an example of a brutal version with the Harkonnen treatment of the Fremen, the Atreides version is still seeking to exploit the indigenous population for their resources and use their power against Atreides' rivals. At one point, one of the Fremen says to the Atreides, "You are off-worlders. You come here for the spice, you take it and offer nothing in return." Paul responds, "That's true." And throughout it seems he is the only character that recognizes the colonial nature of his family's dealings, despite the friendly wrapping. He seems to understand the Atreides are basically just doing a liberal version of colonialism. Where Denis Villeneuve will take this theme in the sequel will be fascinating. After House Atreides is given fiefdom over Arrakis by the Emperor, there is a scene that shows the forces landing on the planet. We see dozens of massive ships, rows and rows of soldiers decked out in armor, small fighter ships flying around, and the banner of House Atreides displayed prominently everywhere. It is both a clear signal that House Atreides, despite their rhetoric, is still a colonial force, but it is also visually awe-inspiring. Villeneuve balances these two juxtaposing feelings within scenes like this to bring us more completely into Paul's perspective. Paul is young. He's never been off-world, and he has so much to learn about the galaxy. He obviously has a sense that the project his family is engaged in is not entirely right, but he can't help but be awed by the grandiose nature of what he is seeing. Dune is an awe-inspiring and thematically dense film. It's the type of adult, big-budget science fiction that we frankly haven't seen in the cinema for a long time. As Paul grapples with the dark and complex world around him, so do we as the audience. Denis Villeneuve has brought this story to the big screen with the scale it deserves, with an all-star cast, a breathtaking score, this one also by Hans Zimmer, and truly haunting images. I look forward to seeing what he will bring us in the sequel and hope that the success of this film will bring us more adult science fiction like it. I'm giving Dune 4.5 out of 5 stars. It is in theaters now and also streaming on HBO Max, but I would encourage viewing it on the largest screen possible at the theater. That wraps up this episode of 2 Tickets Please. If you have any recommendations for future films I should cover, you can email me at josiah@ocamedia.com. I would love to hear them. Thanks for watching.